in a draft throughout yesterday and today, and all of a sudden now Fnatic is just banning it away from them because they just do not want to have that coming through.
Something to talk about also is that this Black Feather is actually a flex. It can still go to the lane as a weapon power. One of Kivalufar's traditional heroes, one of his best heroes to play in the lane. So it's a very possible threat. And if he does choose to go weapon power in the lane, that is very strong in 2.9. We talk about it a lot, and it's because of the health changes that came on every hero in Vainglory. They have a lot more health, so his execution on his A ability does a lot more damage.
Vox taken away by SK, knowing that that's a pick that Fnatic likes to fall back to, and they haven't used it yet this series. Obviously, it was banned in Game 1. They chose not to use it in Game 2 when they had the option, and SK just going to force them to not be able to have it here in Game number 3. But Fnatic, they have lots of options you can go with this. The Arden pairs well with just about everything in the game, so it doesn't really show what you're going to be trying to do whatsoever. And so I'd expect something that could be flexed here just to keep that option available for the side of Fnatic.
The Kestrel is still open. They did well with it today, the first game and yesterday. They choose to not go for it. They go for the Petal, and it's another flex pick. Petal is actually a hero we saw yesterday on TSN. They played it all 3 matches against Rogue. They played it twice as CP with Frostburn, something that we have criticized, but Von C played it twice with Frostburn. They won once and lost another game, and the third game they played it as weapon power on Best Chuck. So still a strong pick here in 2.9, and it's a flex pick that they can choose to play either in lane or jungle.
And we also saw the Petal heavily prioritized in the Tribe versus Cloud9 series, but Catherine is going to be the option for SK. This is another one that was very heavily focused, and Batiste, as you mentioned, Munch, is available. They could go for that duo if they'd like. See if they do try and make that pairing happen.
They did play it yesterday against Dynasty. Instead, they choose to go for the Rhyme. I mean, it's a very strong jungle matchup. On top of it, they did go for the weapon power Black Feather, so this is actually a very well-rounded composition coming from SK. Both very strong late game scaling with the Black Feather in the lane, and very strong early game with the Rhyme in the jungle. And obviously the Catherine is very reliable in team fights.
And the team fighting is going to be extremely strong for the side of SK. It is a triple melee, so perhaps Fnatic tries to focus their last pick around that fact, but it's a very strong triple melee on the side of SK between the Rhyme and the Black Feather. Once they get rolling, both of them are very, very difficult to stop and to lock down.
The thing is, they did pick a Rhyme. I'm sorry to interrupt too much, but they did pick a Rhyme into a Petal, which TSM yesterday chose to counter Rhyme with Petal. So Fnatic does have the option to put the Petal in the jungle as CP, play it against the Rhyme, and pick up something in lane for Tetno JJ. That definitely seems like a Sky CP coming out in the jungle while they're playing Petal in lane. And Sky CP did get buffs in 2.9.
Yeah, Sky CP definitely something that we've seen a lot in the course of the Vainglory here across the first split. At least we saw it quite a few times. We also saw Weapon Sky, so maybe potential for that, although we did only see that once or twice. How are we feeling about these compositions then? Do we feel like either team has an advantage coming into this?
I don't think it's necessarily a clear-cut advantage, but there are definitely advantages for the side of Fnatic. They can really kite this Rhyme very effectively with the Petal and the Sky. Sky's going to be able to slow up this Rhyme and Black Feather when they try and run at you. The forward barrage, whether you go weapon power and just have the natural slow, or if you build a Frostburn on the CP route and just have that huge 30% slow at all times.
Especially since they have Arden and they can get the Echo for the double gauntlets. However, SK can snowball if they use the Rhyme effectively.
All right, we'll see if they can get that snowball on the roll. It's time to get into the Halcyon Fall for this one. Game number 3 between Fnatic and SK Gaming. Hashtag Vainglory8. Let us know who you're supporting. But let's pass it back over to our casters once again. Medic and Excoundrel, please take it away.
Thank you very much, Munch. I am Medic. I'm joined by Excoundrel. And Excoundrel, I have an important question for you here before we actually get on into the action of this best of 3, this final game. When people talk about snowballing with a Rhyme, do you think they're intentionally making a joke, or do you think it's an unintentional pun that they're playing with there?
I think it's just a byproduct of Rhyme being an ice-focused hero and Snowball being a common term of MOBA. Sorry to ruin your joke.
That makes a lot of sense, because otherwise people are using that pun a lot of the time, and they need to cut back on it. But something else that needs to cut back on is SK's early aggression. Actually, they might be the ones that want to put the early aggression on with this Rhyme pick and the Black Feather going into the lane here for Kvalifar.
Yeah, I think if you get to the late game and Palmatoro hits his late game Sky build, Sky does so much work if played correctly into this composition that she shouldn't be caught easily. She counters pretty much most members of SK. People argue about the weapon power Black Feather matchup into the Sky. They're going to go in, Hegman.
Yeah, SK did get the Treant as well. Kvalifar actually jumping quite far forward there. Fnatic realizing they don't want to trade into an Elder Treant buffed SK, so they will just go back into the lane.
Happy to do so as well. Fnatic, again, on the brink of knocking out the current reigning #1 seed in the European VG8, the top contenders for Worlds, for Toilette already forced to use that healing flask. And remember, Europe only gets 1 seed for Worlds this time round. We're only going to have 1 European team heading to Singapore for the World Championships this time round. It is a massive, massive privilege to be that team, but also a huge weight of responsibility. So this is now the proving grounds. The autumn VG8 split is the proving grounds for this European squad to say, we might be the only hope for Europe, but we're going to be a darn good hope, in that position.
Kvalifar jumps forward there. TechnoJJ is going to get healed up. He trampolines as well. The healing flask from Kvalifar, and Kvalifar might be the first SK member to fall. Once again, Fnatic with the first blood.
Wow. Baited in by TechnoJJ there. And then TechnoJJ able to have the reinforcements, just stood very aggressively in that mustache push. Unsure if Kvalifar was even thinking about a gank taking place at that point in time. Maybe they just thought because of rotations that you'd expect Palmatoro and NetToilette to be at the back of their jungle. Maybe they were sharing experience, but definitely got baited in there, did Kvalifar, and again, first blood goes over to Fnatic.
TechnoJJ has the trampoline away in the lane, but Kvalifar with the chase of the Vanguard, not quite enough. SK answer with a kill of their own. And it feels very much like Game 2 all over again. Perhaps we saw TechnoJJ being a little bit overextended, giving SK a way back into the kills.
Yeah, and you see, obviously, we've got weapon power Petal. It's something that has been rising in popularity. A lot of people built it and picked it initially to deal with the heavy Celeste and Scarf meta, where it was so difficult to put pressure on a Celeste and Scarf in fights. So people said, okay, well, technically, a weapon power Petal has got the longest attack range in the game when she uses trampoline. You can build her very much like you build a weapon power Kestrel. You build heavy critical strike and just look to burst them with that very long range, extended base attack range. And again, she kind of kept herself in the meta. Ooh, Palmatoro.
Speaking of burst, Palmatoro almost dies there, just about gets out alive with the Vanguard. So does Hegman, both very low, but forcing Palmatoro back is always a good thing for SK, as that means Tyrus can step forward into this jungle, see if there's any camps he can steal away. Will just take the fronts and has a sizable CS advantage over Palmatoro early on.
Yeah, he has been very heavily farming. I think every Elder Treant has gone over to Tyrus as well, so he's going to take that in his back pocket in terms of his CS advantage. And now he's going to very nicely time his entire rotation. One thing about Rhyme that makes him so good in the jungle is that his clear speed is just fantastic. He's got an unbelievably good clear speed compared to most junglers. And obviously that allows him to steal away enemy camps very quickly, also allows him to be aggressive and also clear his own camps super quickly to set up for ganks too. So I didn't quite get the opportunity to steal too much from Palmatoro this time, but again, fronts, you'll take them where you get them, basically, and he did so there.
I just have to steal away what you can. It's kind of the motto of SK, is now they have an 800 gold lead, a lot of that being on Kvalifar farming up incredibly well in the lane, and he is on this weapon power Black Feather this time. We said it's what most people fear the most out of any pick ban at the moment is this weapon power Black Feather. We've seen it banned a lot of times. Have to see how well Kvalifar can pilot it in this game.
SK going to root up NetToilette here. Kvalifar
going to land
going in.
Yeah, there's the Valkyrie as well. NetToilette's done right at the end. The Winter Spire comes out and eventually SK get the kill. And once again, Fnatic just overstepping their bounds, and SK say, oh no you don't, this side of the jungle is ours. And forcing Fnatic back, taking a kill away as well.
Actually just letting the Catherine walk up and stun as well, because it's interesting that classically you'd always consider Frostburn on Sky an absolute must against the likes of the Catherine, an absolute must against the likes of Rhyme, maybe even Weapon Power Black Feather to an extent. But because Frostburn itself got kind of indirectly nerfed in terms of its overall sort of utility in general weapon CP builds, I'm wondering where Palmatoro will prioritize that in his build, if at all he does prioritize it. I actually do think it could be necessary this game. I do think it would be a good pickup for him, but maybe he just thinks that the CP nerf means the lack of damage output from that item is just not worth the cost at this point in time, as Nettoilette able to escape with the Vanguard. He has picked up again the Heavy Prism and the Eclipse Prism. No telling what that'll be. There is many items he could choose from. It's definitely not going to be Spellfire though, so we can write that one off as it stands. But again, still could work to Frostburn if you wanted to.
Definitely not going to be Solar Blade either. I can tell you that for sure, Scoundrel. Could of course build into any of the variety of CP items that you can get, but Palmatoro is going to trade into Cavalify here. Serpent's Mask and Eve finished on SK. There's a death from above, doesn't hit onto Cavalify. Will connect onto Tyra's, and Fnatic trying to trade in a little bit further, but just can't quite get the damage to stick onto SK at the moment.
No, but there isn't that much damage from Palmatoro right now anyway. Tyra's is gone for the first item in Harvest. This though, he's looking for a flank.
He is. We'll be able to get him from the side. There's the Valkyrie. Palmatoro low. Nettoilette rooted up once again. The Winter Spire comes down, but unable to take down the Arden. And a lot of this game you have to feel rests on Nettoilette for Fnatic. He's on one of his signature heroes. He knows incredibly well how to pilot this Arden. And so if he can land a good gauntlet, if he can get that Echo and get those double gauntlets off in a fight, that's where Fnatic are going to be able to take the win.
I think gauntlets are going to be so crucial to limiting the mobility of SK as well. Again, they'll be looking to try and dive to accelerate their position onto the backline of Fnatic. If you can get those gauntlets, especially with the Echo running very quickly, and limit that SK mobility, that allows Palmatoro and TechnoJ to dance around and find the prime opportunities and prime positioning to land their damage when necessary. It's going to be Dragon's Eye first for Palmatoro, so definitely not thinking that Frostburn is a necessity. I know people really don't like Frostburn right now, but it is a utility item for a reason. It has its place in the meta in specific scenarios, and I don't like the item like on every build. Like I think the point of going Frostburn every single build is a bit like overkill, but it's a utility item now, and I think if you're not going to use it in the desired scenario, then I don't know. I just would have liked to have seen it, I guess, Medic.
Maybe he wants to utilize his gold a bit more effectively in the early game, and then when he gets to sort of that third, fourth item, maybe then he'll think about getting the Frostburn. But I can understand the reasoning behind it. Having a Frostburn to stop these engages can be very effective, especially since SK have shown that they know how to get these flanks off, that they know exactly how they want to position around this Fnatic roster. Tyra's once again in the bottom of that bush, looking for an opportunity, looking for an opening, looking for a gap into which he can stride triumphantly, as SK have strod many times before. Is strod a word? I don't think strod's a word.
I don't know if it's a word, but
strode.
Is it not strode?
Strode.
Is it not strode?
It is. It is. Scoundrel.
I have strod.
Well, they're going to strod straight towards this Crystal Sentry and look to remove that from the Halcyon Fold. 2 lives remaining. What SK were thinking after game 1 here, we need to win the next 2 to be able to take this best of 3 and get through to the finals. It would be, of course, the first time they've lost in 4 weeks of Vainglory 8 action, so would have been a big upset for Fnatic to take the win, but something they need to do if they want to take that European World seed.
What I do like from Palmatoro's build, however, is that he considered the Dragon's Eye. I think it is an item that synergizes so well with Sky's ability to stay in a fight, consistently apply damage, elongated damage with the forward barrage as well. I mean, you generate 3 stacks as it is with the forward barrage if you hit every single proc of it, or at least hit a proc of it every second. Here we go, here's a fight.
Death from above's going to land. Palmatoro chased off by Cavalify, who jumps quite deep into the midst of Fnatic. SK continuing on the offensive with that Rose defensive as Cavalify defends himself. The Valkyrie came out as well. Good Winter Spire onto Techno means he has to pop the healing flask, and yet to see the damage really from Palmatoro. Sadly, we can't see the Dragon's Eye stacks on spec. Otherwise, I'd be really intrigued to see how many stacks he's getting up in these elongated fights. That is a big utility item for him and a big damage item for Fnatic.
We could just count the number of seconds that a team fight taking place.
You count the number of seconds, and then just like every now and again shout out a number. Be like 100, 180. How much extra CP has he got? You keep it. You keep the count, and I'll concentrate on the Vainglory action as TechnoJJ gets engaged on. Death from above did come out to try and stop the engage underneath the turret, but SKC more content with the turret than with the kills, and that will be the first turret to fall in this game. 3,000 gold lead for SK as Cavalify jumps forward once again.
Yeah, just grinding the Fnatic team down with a constant slurry of these Winter Spires coming out from Tyra's. Obviously, the weapon power on point is not doing quite as much damage as those CP ones, but still can be annoying against squishy targets who don't really have any defenses built up, and Techno JJ happens to be one of those. When we're at Palmatoro, we'll head with his build next. He's got 1500 gold and an energy battery in tow, so you'd think that just given his items, he might be considering an Eve of Harvest. You could also consider the Broken Myth. It's definitely something that is on the table and on the cards for him. The fact that he hasn't converted to a Void battery means that I don't think Eve of Harvest is going to be his second item of choice. But it works quite well with Dragon's Eye, because the more CP you get, the more sustain that you're going to get from Eve of Harvest in general. So it's not a bad item to pick up with Dragon's Eye. I guess it will be in his build at some point, but maybe Broken Myth is his second item of choice.
We'll have to wait and see. Across the rest of the heroes, though, Petal, Techno JJ has a Tornado Trigger and a Solar Blade already completed, so he's sitting at 2 completed items. Tyros has the Eve and the Journey Boots to try and chase into Fnatic a little bit more, and Hegman has an Atlas and a Fountain of his own. So there's a sort of a 2-item spike being hit across both of these teams. Actually, Kavalathar has finished up that breaking point as well, so he is going to be devastating if he can get these elongated fights and get onto the backline of Palmato and Techno JJ.
Yeah, that's kind of the 2 items that makes Blackfeather so good right now. The Serpent's Mask and the Breaking Point is a very classic build for him, but with Blackfeather being such a nice place in the meta and Breaking Point being such an easy item to stack against low armor values, it just makes him so powerful because, again, he thrives off those itemization choices. And he's going to be churning up damage very hard, but the important point is that he needs to stay in these fights, and, you know, Fnatic do have disengage in bounds. You know, they have that ability with Gauntlet, they've got Suri Strike, they've got Death from Above, you have the Trampoline from Techno JJ, the double Tornado Trigger build, which is so common on the Weapon Power Petal because you want to make the most use out of that time period where you have the extended basic attack range. So you want to get the most attack speed possible. So you go for the double Tornado Trigger to land as many basic attacks as physically possible off the back of your empowered weapon power area as well. Because remember, when you use Trampoline, you get 20% extra flat weapon power, which is fantastic.
Big fight happening in the jungle here. The Blast Chamber came out. There's a Fountain as well. A good Gauntlet will stun up Hegman, but already Kavalafar's on the back line. Techno JJ having to dodge around. Hegman will be the first to fall. Can Fnatic kite out this fight? Tyra's so low, down to half. He will get taken down as well, but Kavalathar gets one in response. Now he's turning his eyes towards Palmato, but Palmato says, not today, Kavalathar. We may have played together on Team Secret, but it's no secret that I want to
he gets double kill!
Kavalathar turns it around. The captain turns the killer, as Kavalathar will be able to clean this one up. Netwillet trying to run away, but Kavalathar says, not today, my friend. A triple for KV as SK take the kills and the fight win.
20 breaking point stacks on Kavalathar, 860 execute damage on Netwillet, who has got 9 more than his base armor at level 9. That is why Weapon Power Blackfeather is so contested. That is why he's so hard to shut down at this point in time. Perfectly placed that Rose offensive through the Gauntlet to just absolutely crush Palmatori and force him back into the fight, right into Tyrant's range, where Tyrant's got a little bit of damage off on that Rhyme, but so good from Kavalathar. And he's actually going to go towards what I think will be a Tyrant's Monocle as a final item as well, just that icing on the I was about to say delicate and delicious at the same time, like
Delectable is the word I go for if I do that, because you can kind of snake it. But what a heartbreaking moment for Fnatic as well. Kavalafar's actually just fighting them 1v3 at the moment. Jumps straight onto Techno JJ. Rose offensives back away. Tyra's now with the chase, looking for the Winter Spire, the route onto Netwillet, who hasn't got the Gauntlet. Still 8 seconds on that. Keep an eye on that cooldown, because that's when Fnatic will want to jump back in. Netwillet just dodging around the side. Hasn't gone towards the Echo either. It looks like War Tread's next for him, so he's not going to get those double gauntlets down in these fights. A 3,000 gold lead for SK. And what a moment that last fight was. What a turning point for SK as they realize that Kavalathar can get these kills and get the team fight wins for them.
Yeah, and he's sitting on a level 12 infusion right now. Tyra is the only one not infused. I imagine he's going to want to take his rotation and then try and pick up an infusion before this Kraken fight, because obviously Kraken being such a massive tool right now in Vainglory to just end the game outright. I mean, we're sitting at a point where only the first turret has gone down with 15 minutes into the game. SK have clawed their way back in these team fights. They've shown that Kavalathar with that Rose offensive can get through everything that Fnatic have to offer in terms of heal. Tyra's not yet there. He's not sitting on an infusion. I wonder whether SK will try and avoid the fights without an infusion from Tyrus, because it's a pretty important tool to have, especially when Techno and Palmotoro have their own.
Definitely is, and that's what we want to see around this next fight. Which ultimates are up, which items have been completed. You've got Dragon's Eye just finished on towards Tyrus as well, getting himself a bit of light armor. You've got the Echo for Hegman, so he'll be looking for that double blast tremor. And they're fighting around this Crystal Sentry once again. Fnatic have been on point, trying to take this Crystal Sentry down whenever it's up, so that they can eliminate that threat from the jungle of Fnatic. But here goes Techno JJ, trampolining in. Double tornado trigger finished on that petal as well, so he's outputting a lot of DPS if he can find the right targets.
Yeah, he's also going up against everybody who has at least picked up a little bit of armor, though. Classically, Weapon Power Petal is very, very good into the squishier targets that don't really consider armor in their builds. Now, I know base armor and items has been nerfed in general, but if you can push yourself to over 100 armor, you're in a really good position against this Weapon Power Petal build. So everybody at least has picked up some armor here, which is going to make Techno JJ's life a little bit more difficult in terms of trying to find those openings with the trampolines.
Valifar once again on that front line, a good stun on towards Techno JJ. He's going to jump away. There's the blast tremor of his block.
Oh, what a Valkyrie!
Double stun into the silence from the echoed blast tremor, and that is just curtains for Fnatic. Netwillet's going to get chased down as well. It's going to be a clean ace, a double kill for Cavalifar as well, and no less than he deserves and no less than SK deserve with these team fights.
What a Valkyrie from Tyrus. Caught out Palmotoro, didn't even have a chance to use a reflex block, it looks like. He could have escaped from that, but a double carry stun. That's like the thing of dreams for a Rhyme. You very rarely find that you get that in a teamfight situation, but my goodness, he found it right there. Cavalifar obviously able to capitalize on it so well. It's simple stuff when you have static targets as a Blackfeather. You run in, you Rose offensive on top of them, you build the stacks you find next to you, but nicely set up, and also Hegman with a fantastically timed silence to actually facilitate that as well. SK, they're on the aggressive now. They're on the snowball front. They've got Cavalifar with a tornado trigger. It is. He's gone for a tornado trigger over the Tyrant's monocle, so more attack speed in the bank as well. Doesn't need any more weapon power, I guess. He's getting 20 stacks almost every single fight, but coat of plates finished from Tyrus. He's gone for the Dragon's Eye, Eve of Harvest build. I love this build on the Rhyme, by the way. I actually prefer it over the Shatterglass because Rhyme is an elongated duelist, so therefore he makes the most use out of Dragon's Eye. Damn, SK are looking so good in this right now.
Fnatic just unable to find the answers to it as well. Here comes the Kraken push, looking for that choke point turret, and they should be able to take it down pretty easily. The death from above really doesn't even tickle Tyrus. He shakes that one off. And pretty easily, the blast tremor comes out just to force Fnatic back. Kraken is down to half, so perhaps we'll see SK back away. They do have a minion wave coming in here as well, and SK looking for that first turret. Do get some good poke down onto it, but the Kraken will eventually fall. The turret going lower. There's the death from above as well to chase SK away. That is the Kraken falling just before it can take down that crystal turret. So SK unable to break the base yet, but right on the cusp of victory in this best of 3.
Yeah, they're at that full weapon power item build with Techno JJ. He's going to shred through that. Palmotoro working towards a broken myth now. He's on a Dragon's Eye Eve of Harvest, so it was the Eve of Harvest that he decided to prioritize. I think that was probably pretty sensible over the broken myth because you needed to have the sustain, but now he's got best of both worlds. He's picked up all 3 items, so that might be a pretty decent point for Palmotoro. That is actually going to significantly increase his damage in these fights. The 4 barrages are going to hurt that much more. Hegman finds the stun.
And they do good block there, but there's the gauntlet as well. Techno JJ dodging out to the side, but Cavalifar is having none of that. He gets himself another kill. That's his 7th of the game. And Palmotoro now isolated, caught in a corner by Tyrus, and Hegman tries to jump out with the Suri Strike, but there is no escaping Black Feather, and there's no escaping SK, who are looking on course for their 4th finals in a row.
Yeah, Cavalifar doesn't mind that any CC is thrown down in front of him. He literally just rose offensives through all of it. A lot of damage coming out of Palmotoro. Cavalifar was actually forced to back off, but SK, they're looking for the win here, Medic.
Yeah, Netwillet getting chased down as well. Needs to try and survive, but the ace buff will go across to SK. And with that, they'll be able to win out this game pretty effectively. There is the turret falling. They'll go for the crystal next. Techno JJ's up, but it's a last chance saloon for him. Straight into a Valkyrie. Just stun locked for absolute ages. And that will be the win for SK as they take down Fnatic 2-1.
That kind of almost crushes Fnatic's dreams in terms of trying to fight for that top spot. It was a valiantly fought series, but SK once again find the reverse sweep, comeback. It was a composition from Fnatic that if they got it rolling, they could very easily have peeled up against the SK, but SK prioritized movement speed so much. I love this on Orion when you prioritize movement speed to this extent with the journey boot super early on. They found the right engages. Kavalafar played the team fights excellently. We wouldn't expect anything less from a guy that has played so much Power Blackfeather in his career. And whilst I think Palmatoro's build was good, in these situations, yes, Frostburn isn't classically built, but it is a utility item for a reason. Maybe it was a consideration that should have been thought about. I'm not saying it was the right consideration, but it's definitely something for food for thought, Medic.
That it is. What a game by SK to take it 2-1. They advanced